This is the Wheel of Fortune block. It's 12-inch finished. Here is the diagram. It kind of looks like a sunflower the way I've got it colored. This block is a 4x4 grid. Since it's a 12-inch block, that means that each square in this grid finishes at 3 inches. Let's look at the patches. The first one is patch A. It's a 3-inch finished half square triangle. For rotary cutting, you cut 3 7/8 inches square, cut it once in half diagonally, and you get 2 patches. Here are the AccuQuilt dies you can use for this. You can cut the patches and sew the patches together, or you can use the half square triangle 2 at a time method. If you do that, then you don't subcut these. So the number of patches you need are 4 patches of each of these, which is one of these sides, so this is 2 patches. Or you can have 2 squares. But we're going to cut 2 squares of each fabric and use the 2 at a time method to make our half square triangles. Patch B is a chisel unit. We're going to cut 3 7/8 inches long by 2 inches high, and it finishes at 1.5 by 3 inches. And I will show you how to cut this 45-degree angle. We need 8 patches. And this is the AccuQuilt dies that you can use to cut this shape. For both the AccuQuilt and the rotary cutting, you need to place the fabric's wrong sides together to cut the angle. Patch C was a 3-inch finished quarter square triangle. We cut 4 1/4-inch squares, and if we are using patches, we cut twice diagonally to get 4 patches from each square. If you want to use the 4 at a time quarter square triangle method, you leave this in a square, and that's a 4 1/4-inch square. So for this fabric, we'll need 4 patches or 1 square. For this yellow fabric, we need 8 patches or 2 squares. And for the darker fabric, we need 4 patches or 1 square. This is the AccuQuilt die that will get you the quarter square triangle shape for a patch. Patch D is a 1.5-inch finished half square triangle, and we'll cut 2 3/8-inch squares, cut them in half once diagonally, and we get 2 patches. Now this patch D has to be patches. We're not making half square triangles out of them. We're sewing these to the chisel unit. So we'll cut 8 of those, 8 patches, and here is the AccuQuilt die that will cut the patches. And patch E is a 1.5-inch finished square. We'll cut 2-inch squares, and we need 4 patches. Patch F is a 6-inch finished square, so we cut 1 square 6.5 inches, and we need 1 patch. To piece this, we're going to first piece the half square triangles, and these half square triangles go in the corners here, the 4 corners of the block. So those are the corner units. Then we're going to use either method, either sewing the triangles together or using the 4 at a time quarter square triangle method, and we'll make 4 of these quarter square triangles. Then we'll piece the chisel units, and the chisel units have direction. You have a pair of them, and the half square triangle that you sew onto them will be in opposite directions, so they'll look like this. Then we're going to take the chisel units and the quarter square triangle unit and sew them together to make this side unit. And we'll make 4 of those. And then we'll sew the small triangles onto the large square for the center. Now let's look at the fabric. This is patch A. These are the 4 squares. We're going to use the half square triangles 2 at a time to make 4 half square triangles. If you're not familiar with that, stay tuned for the short little clip that shows you how to do this. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. Patch B is our chisel unit, and I'm going to show you how to cut those. We have these 8 pieces, and I have them wrong sides together. And then you cut them once they're wrong sides together. So here is a set we need to cut. You stack them. It helps if you put them wrong sides together and cut them that way. Then you don't have to restack them each time. I'm going to take my ruler with a diagonal line, the 45-degree line on the ruler. I'm putting my 45-degree line at the edge, the bottom edge of the fabric, and this little tip of the ruler here is lined up with the corner of this piece of fabric. So here you can see, here's the end of the fabric, here's the end of the ruler. And then we're just going to cut off the 45-degree line. And then we have 2 pieces that are reflections of each other. Then we'll take the D patch, which are these 8 patches of half square triangles, and we're going to sew that on here. Flip this over, line up the bottom. So I'm lining up the bottom of this line and then the side, and then we'll stitch 1/4 inch this way. Then press the seams open, and this is what you get. And we will have 4 pairs of these. One will go this way and the other's the other way. Next we have the 1/4 square triangle, patch C, and we have 4 of these squares. For the 1/4 square triangles, 4 at a time, we have our 4 squares. This fabric will show up twice in each 1/4 square triangle. We're going to put these right sides together, so one with the dark and one with the light. Then we're going to mark a diagonal line on the backs of both of these fabrics. Now we'll stitch on both sides of the diagonal line on both of these pieces. Now we're going to cut on the diagonal line. Normally I press the seams open, but for this technique we're going to press toward the fabric that is duplicated. So we're going to press toward the yellow fabric on all of these. Now we're going to take the different fabrics and match them together and flip this over. What we're doing is making sure the yellow fabric is on opposite sides, and we're using the seam allowance or the pressed seam as our guide, and we're nesting these seams. And you want to make sure that all of these sides are even. Then we're going to draw another diagonal line. And I like to put some pins on here just to hold it in place while I take it over to the sewing machine, because I don't want the seams to unnest. I'm going to stitch on both sides of the diagonal line and do the same thing for this set. Now we're going to cut them apart on the diagonal line. And when we open them up, we have 1/4 square triangles. They all look the same. So now I'll go press open and then cut off all the nubs. 4 1/4 square triangles. Now that we have our 1/4 square triangles done and our chisel units done, we're going to look at step 4 and sew these units together like this. So make sure that your triangles are going in the right direction and that the dark fabric is at the bottom like this. So we'll sew these together and we'll make 4 of these. Press the seams open. The last thing we're going to do is piece the F patch with the E patches. These E patches are cut 2 inches and they finish 1.5 inches. You can do these 2 different ways. One is the stitch and flip, where you draw a diagonal line on the back of the triangle, of the square. You stitch on the diagonal line this time, and then you trim it away 1/4 inch. The other way is to use the folded corner clipper, and we're going to put the folded corner clipper here. We line up the top edge, the side, and then we line up the 2-inch mark here, and there's another little mark here, and then we'll cut. Now you'll take this to your machine and just stitch 1/4 inch. And here we have our snowball unit finished. Now we have all of our units are done. We have our center unit, corner unit, and side units. And we'll just put the block together. We'll sew the 3 units together into rows and then sew the rows together, and the block is finished. Thanks for watching.